No Cracks or Sagging by David R. Bunch. Sometimes, from the brink of our great involvements, we move in our minds back to remember things of seemingly small bore significances that loom in the recalling times extra large. The day I crossed over, the day I went into Moderan, out in the rolled and graded fields far as the eye could reach, were these long legged tramping machines. Essentially, they were huge black cylinders, swung spinning between gigantic thighs and calves of metal. There seemed an air of casualness about the strange black monsters as they loafed on their tall thighed legs and twirled their cylinders about in what appeared to be, at times, almost totally contrived, excessive, and meaningless nonchalance. Then, at no single signal that I could detect, at no prompting that I could learn of, one or another of the machines would rush right over to a spot of ground, and, seeming to bend forward a little at the waist, unleash the fury of its cylinder at the fresh earth underneath, as though in great glee and highest concentration. The two-legged machine, once started, would really pummel that spot of earth with the front end of its cylinder for upwards of, say, 30 minutes, or maybe even three-quarters of an hour, increasing its battering motion as the minutes passed. Then, appearing to know without any guessing when enough was plenty, and withdrawing a dirt-caked cylinder end, the machine, as it erected to full height from its leaned position, would wander away and rejoin other loafing, waiting machines, as though nothing of any consequence had really occurred at all. Once, two machines started for the same spot of earth, and it was quite a show to watch them both hunch into battering position at the same time, take aim at the same place, and start battering each other's cylinder almost as much as they pummeled the ground. An overseer for tamping machines watched this ridiculous punching contest for a while, before he went over and drummed each machine on the rump, just enough to break up the rhythm of their misdirected jab, 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 and send them both packing off, twirling their cylinders, as though they hadn't really wanted to use them anyway. The job was awarded to a third machine, a troubleshooter reserve type, who soon hunched into position and went about poking away at the place as though the world were entirely new and jolly to him, and hey ho, jig jig, holiday, holiday, go, go, go. What gives? Who goes? What gives? I asked the overseer of tamping machines, my voice with wonder like a child's, my eyes surely bulged out like, in the old days, a frog's. Time goes, life stays, hey ho, ho hey, he recited. And then he said, what are you, some kind of a humorist or something? What do you mean, what goes, what gives? What goes, what gives? Explain these grim, grotesque, and altogether hilarious actions. I wish to be instructed. I want to understand. I see nothing but burlesque here. Is there more? Is there more? Man, is there more? Then he looked at me more closely. Why, you're from out there. Old times, he ejaculated. Perhaps you really do not understand at all. Maybe you really do mean what goes, what gives. I mean, what goes, what gives. My fists were doubled by now, and I saw I could easily go into my punch now, talk later mood for sure. Travel far? I came far enough, in miles, in time, in blasted hopes and withering dreams. In tear I came, in trouble. Yes, I came far enough. And now to find, near the place of my chartered destination, if I come on course, and if I drew my lines correctly on the charts they gave, a kind of antic, silly farm. We're big two-legged machines that are essentially, as I see it, just contrivances for carrying around those big party rammers at wholly random instances and to no practical purpose at all. Try to have sexual intercourse with the soil. You're quite a talker. Why don't you cut through more? Go direct to your statement and pummel your meaning. Be more like these machines. You can see when they get that signal, they don't beat around the bush. They go right over there, and then it's just foo, 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 jig, 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 bam, 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 until the job's done. What job? What's done? The solution is to cover the pollution. The answer is to get rid of the cancer. Ho, ho, ho. I moved in on him, and I was ready to punch him down. Then I saw he had a strange look. He stared me back with gleaming, beaming, funny eyes, and there was about him something of the manner of not a man, but more a machine man. This is Moderan, he said. We're building new land here. When these misters detect a soft place in our soil, they rush right over and batter it into submission. They look random and nonchalant, I know, but really they're not. When they seem to be just standing, they're sampling things from way off, maybe. You see, they own very sensitive feet. It's built in. If there's a soft place in their sphere of detection, they'll get it through these sensistors on their feet. Treading here, they'll get a vibration from a hollow place out there. They're programmed to hate hollow places. They rush right over and stick in the Jamiram cylinder when they get wind of the hollow place. By hollow place, I mean a piece of land surface that isn't as hard as it should be. Oh, yes, and that's important? Very. Then he looked at me, cold-eyed. Maybe you'd better come with me. I can leave these machines for a while. These Jamirams are programmed so that really all I have to do is put in night time and take care of unusual occurrences like when two signals cross at the juncture of spheres of detection. This happens but rarely, but when it does, ooh-wee, look out. We have, as you saw, the strange, hilarious, and altogether inefficient phenomena of two Jamirams going for the same hole. By hole, I mean a piece of land surface that isn't as firm as it should be. Very hard on Jamirams, and also it doesn't make for a good tamping job at the hull, either. And when you're building for forever, that's one of the things you really do want and must have. A good tamping job at the hull. He wasn't kidding. I saw he wasn't kidding. We got into his flap-hap airabout scoot, and he used to check on plans, and we went up high. As far as the eye could gaze, I saw the flats, all dotted with Jamiram monsters. Was about 3/4 of this far as I could see area of the flats. Brown-black scraped-off earth speckled with the darker, wandering, and nonchalant spots that were machines doing, I had just been told, a very efficient and important piece of detection work and finalization execution at the whole. Then, far down near the horizon, and at the edge of the dots that were Jamirams, I saw how the browny black changed to a blur that was gray or grayy white. He slipped me a pair of long rangers for the eyes, and I zeroed in on the blur. The new Ice Age. Not at all, he returned. Maybe just precisely, if you want to see it so. But this Ice Age, if you want it so, go ahead, call it that, is for the species, not against it. You'll never see this Ice Age rolling up boulders or creeping along with mammoth bones in its teeth. This Ice Age is covering up dirt, not just rearranging it. That's plastic you're looking at, man. I'm out here as an advance guard for plastic. It's a friendly, deadly competitive hell for plastic devil take the hindermost race between my Jamirams and me on the one side, and that creeping gray edge on the other. And we're gaining. He smirked with satisfaction. As if I hadn't already decided he was some kind of a great one, I would have suspected right now that he was just some kind of a small jackass overseer type, taking a lean satisfaction from staying on top of his small job. But surely not. Surely this was a planner, a mover, a shaker, and a rearranger of the world's scheme. At least a mover, a shaker, and a rearranger of the surface of the earth. Why, what? I sputtered. Yes, I was snowed in just now, as deep back in the murk as I ever liked not to be. He looked hot-eyed with little bulbs at me. He really bored in hard. He seemed to be making some kind of a tough decision about whether I really existed or not. Anyway, I got that impression. So hard was his bright bulb stare. Say, you are cleared for this, he finally said. Aren't you? I remembered some gates and some guards I had passed many days and many miles long back. Far down at the edge of the place where things were old and wrecked, I remembered that hard cross-questioning and the lie detectors and the probing. And I think I'm cleared, I answered. Would I have got this far if I had not been? Some things like 10 eagles have hung over me all the long way, as it is, circling, as I came slowly on my tired Shanks mares. I take it you people are taking no chances whatsoever with what you've got down here. We take no chances. Show me if you've got it. I rolled up my sleeves and showed him the two bright orange M's that had been stamped on my lower arms at the clearing gates a long while back. I thought that it might be what he wanted to see, and it was. "You're cleared, and you're a whole lot more than that." He peered more closely at the M's. You probably don't know it now, but you're a whole lot more than just cleared." There was in his voice a note of admiration that I couldn't believe was faked. Yes, he meant it. He pointed at some small symbol under each M. "You probably don't know exactly what those mean," he mused, "but I do. I really do." Then he shook his head in what I had to read as sadness, and he seemed to slip in memory a long way down. "Too old," he muttered. "Too old and too many bridges gone crackling down in the floods. The flames and the always present wrecking of the days. Before this thing came up for me. But you're just right. You're young, and apparently you passed your tests with colors flying, really whipping out there in the breeze. I bet you're stamped just about all over under your clothes." "Yeah, they stamped me up pretty well. Then they told me to get going. Pointed me a road, gave me maps and charts, and said, 'Get on up there. They're a building, and you're sure to be in time.' Is this what they meant?" "No, not for you. This is what I qualified for. I was a Moderan early, but I was too old and time-ravaged and event hurt before this gold chance came up for me. But you're young and right and on the mark. I can tell you now you'll be a stronghold master, one of the elite. And if you can stand those operations, and there's no reason why you can't, I stood what ones they allowed me to in good shape, and you're to be allowed the maximum. I can read it by those small marks under the M's. Congratulations!" Impulsively, he let go of the controls of the flap hap and grabbed my right hand with both of his hands. Really got a steel handshake that day. After a while, we landed, back at the place where we had started, and there were two jammy rams going for the same hole again, so it was altogether to the good that we had arrived back at this station when we did. He rushed right over and straightened things out by slapping the two silly rammers on their rumps with a certain rhythmic beat, as I had seen him do in that other instance. "A very bad spot this here," he announced, coming back. "Something about the spheres of detection right here at this locale, which you'll notice is a little bit of a depression taken on the large and causes tangling of the spirals. Really not the fault of the machines, not at all, for they just do what they're programmed for, and that's it." "You really know how to do it," I exclaimed, for something intuitively told me now that here was just a little serving man, really, a victim, who could do with some praise. He swelled a lot with good pride as his chest came up a notch. "You know, I developed that technique myself, slapping 'em on the rump that way with a certain beat. Breaks up their rhythm, jiggles the connections, and they just wander away for a while, not knowing what and how else to do. After a short time, though, they settle right back down again. The rhythm of their programming is restored, and they're good, serviceable jammy rammers once more." "Anyway, I think that's neat, slapping these big earth fornicators on the rump that way to send them off just twirling their dirty cylinders at the air, all puzzled and deranged. Sort of shows man's mastery somehow yet, huh?" "Yeah. Thought it up myself. Kind of by accident, really. Saw it did work when my foot slipped, and I fell against one of them one time, flailing my arms for balance. Adopted the method. Against all procedures, naturally. Say, you should see what I'm really supposed to do when something like this comes up. About 25 to 30 forms to fill out, giving the pinpoint time and place and my ideas on why the fell up. I'm curiously filling out the forms, see, after I've immediately and at once sent in the signal to headquarters that two jammy rammers are at the same hole. Come with all speed. About 16 big shots hop off their new metal mistresses up at headquarters. Their secretaries, you know. Jump in their flap-hap air-bout jet scoots and slam off out here as though hell itself were inside coming out. All this time, the two poor jammy rams with their signals crossed are beating hell out of each other's rammers, making a bigger scarred-up soft place in the graded surface than there was before, and generally compounding futility to the top degree. But the big shots get there fast, in about 2 to 5 minutes. I will say this for them, they're prompt. And they rush out of their jet-slap airabout scoots and have their big cigars fired up and are clearing their throats and considering things almost before the two mixed-up jammy rams are scarcely one-third through with the programmed cycle of earth ramming. Which makes it harder, really, because naturally, being big deal men of action, these headquarters fellows do something even if it's wrong, you know. Signal off out there at once for the separator task forces, which come in on the heavy transports in about 10 minutes more, and these separator troops, their big chain links around the intensely working jammy rams and drag them away from the hole. The jammy rams still fighting to finish the cycle, naturally, of course. Ever tried to pull a jammy ram by force away from the hull before he'd finished his cycle? No, never did that. No, he laughed. Of course you didn't. But it can be done with enough horsepower, pulling at the jammy rams and strong enough chains. Tears up the jammy rams, though, and causes them to have to be sent away many, many miles to the repair stations. Then I just complete the filling out of the forms. The procedures are maintained, and everything's unstrained, happy and satisfied with the headquarters boys. I laughed. He laughed. If I hewed to the line of procedures in every way, that long ice edge of the plastic world would be covering me up, but completely. Along with my jammy rams in no time at all. I run my show out here. The big deal headquarters men can log more time on the new metal secretaries. I stay ahead of the plastic, and who's to care if I cut a few procedural corners right in twain? Nobody should care, I agreed. He looked at me, and a half smile toyed at the corners of his mouth. This proud, vain little man. You know what'd happen if they ever found out how I slapped those jammy rammers on the rump with a certain beat to shortcut procedures? I'd be riding out of here in chains in just minutes. That's what'd happen, yeah. Procedures are the god in New Land. It's got to be that way, of course, but still, once in a while, I think a practical mind is best. I usually give those jammy rams a little extra oiling, polish and pet with the slick up, shine up kit to help them get back straight and forget their humiliation, and it works out. And suddenly, I had a dazzling flash of insight. This man was really pretty usual. Procedures were for everyone but him. All at once, I found myself not admiring his cunning little rump-slapping transgression of the rules quite as much as I thought I would, but then, as I've found out in the past, all people disappoint me, soon or late. They just don't measure out. What about that plastic? What about those jammy rams, for that matter? I yelled. You've flown me over wide expanses of scraped and graded earth swarming with milling, wandering, and soil-fornicating jammy rams. You've also flown me over wide areas of whitey-gray plastic that was smooth and cold as ice from where I sat. There's some reason for all this? You seem to think it's important outside of being your job. Is it important? His eyes went hard bright. He was not a friendly man just then. But soon he relaxed, when something had clicked in his mind, I guess. Sure, he answered, it's very much of importance. But being so lately from Old Land and coming far away from where all is wrecked and cindered as I understand it, I guess you wouldn't know. Forgive me. I was getting a little flame-hot at you just then. I thought you were ridiculing. But I know now, remembering your background, it's ignorance, and ignorance can be admirable if the person came by it honestly. Flippant, fly-blower, half-baked wiseacring is about the worst thing in the world, compared to honest ignorance. Thanks, I said. Thank you. Now, to answer your question about the scraped-off, rolled-down land, the jammy rams, and the plastic, you see, we're moving down toward where you came from. We'll get it all in time. Surely you must know that the earth is poisoned. From what I've heard, where you are from is not only poisoned, but wrecked and cindered as well. We stopped just short of that havoc up here, therefore this is the place for you from Old Land to come to. But our land was poisoned by science progress as much as yours was. So we're covering all with the sterile plastic, a great big whitey gray envelope of thick, tough, sterile plastic over all the land of the earth. That's our goal. It's a mammoth task, but for mammoth task, man has behemoth machines. The mountains go into these valleys, the creek banks go into the creeks, the ditch sides go into the ditches, the golf courses are smooth, the mine tailings are scattered, and all is coated. At the necessary places we make the reservoirs for runoff and freeze it solid. The oceans we will deal with in our own time and well enough. There are several plans, one being to use our scientific know-how to freeze the oceans solid, another being to shoot the oceans out into space in capsules and be done with all that surplus water forever. The new metal man, which I am to a degree, and which you are to become to a much, much higher degree, would need very little water. But now it's the land we're doing. The water is a later task. But then we get all through. I visualize an earth of such tranquility and peace in nature that it must be the true marvel of all the ages. The surface of our globe will be a smooth, tough, gray white hide. When our water plans are finalized, the rainfall will be no more. No more will men be fleeing floods anywhere in the world. In cloudless heavens, the wind will have died in even our even temperatures. No more will man go sky high in the twisters. The air will hang as a tranquil envelope of essentially a smooth gray ball, the smoothness being broken only by the strongholds and the bubble dome homes. Trees, if we want them, will spring up from the yard holes at the flick of a switch. The flowers will bloom just right and on time in wonderful bloom metal. Animals, there'll be no animals unless we should want a few tigers and lions and such, all mechanical, of course, for a staged jungle hunt. Yes, it'll be a land for forever, ordered and sterilized. That's the dream. But you still haven't told me why those jammy rams ram at the soil in such a ridiculous way. Yes, I could listen to the grandest plan in all the universe and still feel the bones of a jagged, ragged, uncomfortable question nag at my dissenting throat. And anyway, I felt he owed me an answer on less grandiose terms. Anyone could have a big puffball dream about how to make the earth into such an ordered place as almost to stump the imagination. But would it ever happen? Well, I, for one, would call it more than a small cosmic miracle if man, a spark of life tediously evolved from the dead cold elements himself, should so organize his forces as to rearrange those elements to have essentially a dead cold planet again before he departed. It would seem to me a dismal and more than a little depressing closing of the ring for sure. Tell me about the jammy rams, I shouted. Well, as you should have guessed a while back, the jammy rams are just clever and sophisticated machines, science's marvels, you might say, for making sure that the surface we're coating is packed and solid everywhere. We want no cracks or sagging in the plastic. The mammoth graders and rollers do the big smoothing and packing jobs, and they're now miles on beyond. And miles back the other way, as we saw in our flap-hap aerobout scoot ride, is the ice edge of the plastic this whole thing is all about. And my jammy rams and I are in between, the artistic effort, really, the ones who are seeing that the whole thing comes not to naught because of small, soft places left untended to make it improper bedding for the plastic. Yes, we're the crux of it. I could see that his was a proud calling. I looked about, and far and wide strolled still on that smoothed and rolled down earth the tall cylinder-carrying monsters, and many was the jammy ram that was hunched into the position, and having a go at the jug, 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 foo, 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 bam, 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 that was its main mission. How long will I be in that hospital? I asked abruptly, thinking now of my future and many things. 9 months, he answered at once, gently rump-stroking a nearby jammy ram that was having a go at a soft place in the hard hide of the soil. That's the full transformation, and you're scheduled for it, from the markings I read under this orange M's. He stuck out a hand, and I shook it, felt its cold steel. Good luck, boy, with the operations. When we meet again, if we meet again, you'll be a stronghold master, one of the elite. Youth will be served. I missed my chance, failed my hunt, ordered my gray battalions on to the impossible fields too late, and lost, due to no fault of my own. It was age and fate. He turned away, and I knew he was fighting a battle. I went on up toward the place where the operations were 9 months long, according to rumor. Iron nurses, sterile and capable, ran on spur tracks up to the edges of beds, where a man, if of the chosen, might receive enough part steel to be a king in his times.